everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the finish the book tag. I think that's what it's called. I saw this tag over on my friend Robin's channel and it looked quite fun. It's more of a tag talking about how you organize your books and how you keep track of what you're reading rather than talking about any books in general or like specific books. And I quite like these kinds of tags because they allow for more discussion, I think, than just listing a ton of books. So there are 7 questions. I might as well get started. The first question is, do you keep a list of all the books you have read? Yes, I do. So I started off on I'm just gonna give you a bit of background here. I started off on a website called Shelfari, which was a little bit like Goodreads. On your profile had your own sort of bookcase where you had all of the book covers of things that you were reading. So I started listing all the books that I could remember reading on there back in, it would have been 2009, 2008, something like that. And then I discovered Goodreads and I moved everything over to there, and I found that it was a lot easier to search for books on Goodreads. And then Amazon bought both Shelfari and Goodreads and then got rid of Shelfari, which I'm still quite upset about. So I do think I've listed most of the books that I have read through the years on Goodreads. I've been tracking my books annually since 2010, which is when I got majorly back into reading and I started booktubing and book blogging. But I tried to go back and list all of the books that I remember reading from when I was a lot younger, like all of the Animal Arc books, Goosebumps, Point Horror books that I could remember reading, things like that. So I do have a list of all of the books that I can remember reading, and whenever I come across random children's books I also add those. In addition to Goodreads, I'm still going on this first question, I also keep a spreadsheet, or I have done for the past like 4 years I think, to list all of my books and keep track of stats and things. I also started a reading journal this year, but I didn't get very far with it because I was reading too quickly to keep up with it. In January I read a ton of books. In February I was trying to go for 28 books in 28 days, so I think I got to book like number 22 of the year and I just stopped. So I think that's something that I want to focus on in the next month or so, is to get back into the reading journal, because I did find that it really helped me with my end of the month wrap-ups to remember what I was exactly thinking when I finished the book. I'm thinking maybe going into next year I could maybe decorate the journal and make it really pretty, and that will be like a creative outlet. So yeah, I do track my reading in multiple locations. Question number 2 is, if you record stats, which stats do you record? I record so many. I do have a few stats videos up on my channel if you want to go and check that out. I track the book, the author, the number of pages or the number of hours. I track the star rating in half stars. I don't do quarter stars, but half stars are quite handy. I track the genre, the publisher, the type of publication, so whether it's like traditional, indie or self-published. I track the location that it's set in because I have my world maps to show you where the book is set. I track the author's race because that's something that I was trying to focus on over the past couple of years. I didn't want to just read white authors because I was a bit scared that I had been, and that's definitely the case in the past, but I'm definitely getting much better. I don't track whether the author is LGBTQ+, because I find that they sometimes don't feel comfortable sharing, and to be honest that's none of my business, so I don't track that anymore. I think it makes me a bit uncomfortable to track it. I also used to track the gender of the author, and I don't do that anymore because, again, for the same reason, they don't always share it, and also like I don't really need to track their gender just for my own statistic. Like, it seems a bit silly, so I don't do that. But yeah, I record a ton of things. I also track the number of books I bought in the month, how many of those books that I've read, and how many books I got from the library, and how much I saved by going to the library. So I've got a ton of stats that I share. Is it each quarter of the year or each half of the year? Not entirely sure, but you'll find those videos on my channel on a playlist because I really enjoy sharing all of my stats with you. Question number 3 is, do you give star ratings for books, and if so, what do you rate books out of and how do you come about this score? So yes, I do give star ratings. I think they're very important for me to kind of figure out how I'm feeling about a book, and also to tell my viewers or readers of my blog, or just general readers in general, whether I think it's a good book or not, because people are interested. I don't like it when reviews don't give star ratings because then you have to read through the entire review, and I don't have time for that. I have to read a lot of books themselves. I don't have time to read a freaking essay. So I don't like it when reviews don't give star ratings for a quick glance at how the reader was feeling about it. I personally rate books out of 5, but I do give half-star ratings if it's kind of in between a rating. I don't give 0.25 stars because I find those a little bit extra. It's a bit too much. 0.5s work fine for me. The other part of the question was, how do you come about this score? So a lot of it is just feelings. In general, my 5-star books are amazing, fantastic, almost flawless, all-time favourites. I said that already. Books that I've like absolutely loved and would recommend to absolutely everyone, probably with some caveats. A 4-star read is brilliant. I flew through it. It's just not got that 5-star feeling for me. A 3-star book is good. I enjoyed it. I probably wouldn't reread it, and I probably would unhaul it as well because there's no point in keeping it on my shelf. But it's definitely not a bad book, and I enjoyed my time reading it. It's just not something that I'm going to go back to. I would probably recommend it to people, most people. It's not something that I would go out of my way to sort of analyze and talk about and things. 2 stars normally means that the book was boring. I did finish it, but it was just really dull and I wouldn't recommend it. 1 star means that the book was absolutely atrocious, horribly written, offensive sometimes. I did finish it though, because I don't rate the books that I don't finish typically. I've got a separate shelf on Goodreads for DNFs because I don't like to rate DNFs, because in my mind, like, why would they be anything but a 1 star? It just doesn't make sense. I basically score books on vibes alone and how they're feeling to me in that moment. I don't tend to go back and change my rating because it's more important to me how I felt while reading the book and straight after, rather than how I feel like 6 months down the line. Because if I were to reread the book again, I'd likely feel the same way, I think, or it was just perfect for me in that moment in time. So yeah, I don't bother to go back and change my ratings. Question number 4 is, do you review books? Yes, I do. I review them on my channel and also on my book blog. I'm really bad at copying things over to Goodreads and Amazon, but I do want to get better at doing that because I know that it does help the publishers out. So that's something I want to work on going into the end of the year. I want to copy all of my reviews over because it just makes sense to do so. I also review for NetGalley and EW, and they like it when you cross-post your reviews. So it would make sense for me to do so. I have tried reviewing on Waterstones, but it's just a bit of a faff to do that. It's not the most sort of streamlined reviewing process. It also annoys me that you can, it makes sense, but it annoys me that you can swear on Goodreads in your reviews, but you have to censor the bad language on Amazon and Waterstones, which just adds an extra element of work for me, and I'm lazy, so that's why I don't often cross post. Question number 5 is, where do you put your finished books? I put them here on this bookshelf. I have an entirely separate TBR shelf just there with all of my unread books, and this shelf here is only for books that I have read. So I've got 4 full shelves of my own. Quill has a top shelf, and then the bottom shelf is full of like Harry Potter books and big chunky like encyclopedias and stuff. I also unhaul books quite a lot, so I've got an unhaul pile just next to the bookshelf, books that I want to get rid of because I'm not going to reread them. And then downstairs I have a box of books that I'm slowly taking to charity shops and to book swaps and stuff because they won't all fit in this room. This unhaul pile here is just for ones that I need to talk about in a video at some point, which is why they're in this room. Question number 6 is, how do you pick your next book? Vibes again, it depends what I'm in the mood for. I'm entirely a mood reader. When I was watching Robin's video, she actually mentioned using a random number generator on her Excel sheet to go through her TBR, and I think that's a fantastic idea, and I might do that for a video and see how it goes, but I don't know how I would feel about it. I often just sit here in this room and just stare at my bookshelves, and I try to decide what I want to read. I do keep all of my monthly TBR books separate as well in a pile, just like on this shelf here, so I can see them easily and I can pick from that pile ideally. But if I'm in the mood for a different book that isn't on that pile, then I don't punish myself. I go ahead and pick it up because reading is meant to be enjoyable. Sometimes I do have obligations. I'm meant to be reading stuff like book clubs, and for recaptains as well, I read a lot of sequels for recaptains or books in a series so that I can get a book summary up on my website. I do find that quite annoying sometimes because it's not really mood reading when I have a deadline to get the book read, but it's fine. It gets me reading. Also, there are NetGalley and EW review copies, which I do need to read before the deadline, so sometimes I'll prioritise those. Sometimes I have library holds that need to go back, so I'll prioritise those. So yeah, vibes, deadlines, a mixture of things. I will never read a book though that I'm not in the mood for, whether it's like got a deadline or needs to go back to the library or anything. I'd rather return it to the library and get it another time rather than try to read it and then not enjoy it, because I want to be in the mood for the books I'm reading, because again, it's meant to be a fun hobby and I don't see the point in making it or turning it into a job. Question number 7 is, do you have any other rituals for when you have finished a book? So I typically go to Goodreads and read through, if it's a book that I liked, I like to read through the negative reviews, and actually the same deal for when it's a book that I didn't like. I like to read negative reviews. I find them quite funny, and quite often people will point out things that I didn't notice, and sometimes I care about the thing that I didn't notice, and sometimes I'm just like, why are you even picking on this? Sometimes people have really poor opinions. I think that's quite funny. I don't tend to do that for books that I absolutely love though, like City of Brass I will not look up bad reviews for because it makes me angry. My Dark Vanessa, I looked up bad reviews for that and they made me really angry because people just missed the point of the book. So I tend to do that. I try to put everything onto my spreadsheet quite quickly so that I don't forget what I've read and what I'm going to rate the books, but I do also keep the physical books on a pile here next to my TBR pile so that I've got the book's ready for my wrap up for the end of the month, so I can just look back and see what I've been reading there. Other than that, I don't think I have any rituals. I always tell Quill about what I've just read because I think he's interested. Otherwise, no, I don't have any actual rituals. So that's the entire tag. I don't know who has done this tag and who hasn't. I'll tag a couple of people down below if I remember. If not, then consider yourself tagged. Feel free to do this. I think it's quite a fun one. It's good for discussion. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.